and we'll get underway. Well, thanks all a lot for joining me. I trust you had a good weekend. I don't know where you were in the country, but I can tell you this much, Sharon Palmy, the weather was absolutely glorious. Really, really pleased with how, with the opportunity to have a good weekend, and I trust you got to make the most of it. I thought we'd start off today just with a quick poll. Wanted to just get people's thoughts and insights into what we're doing. So here's my little poll over here. So here we go. So I'm going to launch the poll. We just wanted to see what were some of the key areas you were looking for help, information on. So feel free to tick as many of those as you feel resonated with you. And just looking for some of the areas that people had that they were wanting to get some idea, obviously giving us an idea around what we can cover off going forward. Great, thanks. Got a number of people. Good, excellent. So a number of you got and put stuff in there. That's good. A couple more. Excellent. Good to see that coming through. Great. All right. All right, let's share those polling results. Just good to see a very common thing coming through. Just keeping a positive mindset seems to be the biggest one, and so fits in very nicely with what we're going to cover off today. So that's great. Excellent. Thank you for that. So just jumping through and having a quick look. What I wanted to cover off today was making the most from working at home. And one of the big things with this, there's been a lot of discussion around on various platforms. Obviously, spent a bit of time on LinkedIn. And I found this particular quote really helpful, particularly for those of you who are perhaps new to working from home and wrestling a little bit with your mindset around the ups and downs. This comment was actually made by somebody who had spent the last 2 years working at home. And I've been working from home now for over a decade, and I must say that I found this particularly useful. Even though we've been doing it for ages, the little retweak on it, and this whole idea that we're working at home during a crisis, trying to work. So, really important to give yourself to be real while still being optimistic for what the future's got. So let's just talk about mindset. It's a really important part of working from home. If you want to get the most out of working from home, one of the really important things is to be self-aware. Those of you who have done emotional intelligence with me will know how important it is to be self-aware. It's the key foundation stone of emotional intelligence. And being self-aware is being aware of how you feel. What sort of feelings have you got? Are you having roller coaster moments? And how are you talking? Because oftentimes, if you're not really clear on how you feel, if you're not really connected to that, you can often tell what your thoughts and feelings are by what you're saying. Do you find yourself saying things like, "Oh, I'm stuck at home," or do you say things like, "Well, we're keeping safe at home"? The little tweaks, the little nuances in your language give a good indication to your current mindset. So really good to keep an eye out for, is your language positive? Is it optimistic? Or is your language giving away the fact that you're feeling trapped? I know for me personally, the idea of being at home and not being able to travel around, I definitely have been working a lot of my mindset in that space, and I found TED Talks to be particularly useful. This one over here, how changing your story can change your life, I found particularly good in that it helps you to, she looks at the different sides to a story and gets you to reevaluate what you're telling yourself. And we had a very sobering phone call with my parents in South Africa, and one of the things that they shared was around how they have something called emergency taxis in South Africa. I should be showing it. Yep, just checking. Can everyone see my screen okay? Just if I could have a quick show of hands if my screen is. Yep, good. All right, excellent. Thank you. Just had a question coming through. That's marvelous. Thank you. So just chatting to them around the fact that here in New Zealand, we actually have a government who has made a decision and closed the borders and putting something in place. They're being decisive. Now, you could agree, disagree with them, but they are doing something, and we're watching the infection rate taper off and is flattened off and is now apparently starting to drop a bit. Whereas in South Africa, they have these things called emergency taxis, where you basically stuff as many people into a car as you possibly can. And of course, you're touching each other, you're coughing all over each other. And they tried to restrict how many people could go in these, and they weren't allowed to. And because the guy just said, well, if we can't fill it up, we're not going to drive. And so when we start to look at this, and you start to look at how fortunate we are, when we start to look at the good things, when we start to, you get what you focus on. So where are you focusing on? All that you have, or on the things that you don't have? So a big part of that, of course, is focusing on what you can control. There's so much at this current stage that we cannot control. And so you can feel overwhelmed if you try and take it all on board. Focus on what you are able to control. It really does make a big difference. A lovely little thing over here with a person is, how are you dressing to go to work in the morning? Are you actually getting up and getting dressed for work? What mindset are you putting yourself into? You think incredibly differently when you dress for work than you do if you're in your PJs or your dressing gown. Okay, so please do think about, if you're struggling with mindset, if you're struggling to stay positive, do the little things that can help. My kids always used to wonder at me, you know, when I very first started working from home, they go, why do you dress like this? You're going to spend the whole day at home. And I went, you think differently when you dress for work. You think like you're at work. So do be aware of it. It's a subtle thing, but it does make a big difference. One of the companies we're working with has gone and put in place a casual Monday and Friday, and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they're making sure people are dressing up for work. So, you know, you can have some flexibility in there, but do give that some thought. In line with this, part of keeping a good, healthy mindset is to have a healthy routine. Keep regular work hours. And inside of that, Kerry's just gone and commented over here, and there's a very excellent TED talk. It was actually a talk given to the university. I mentioned it last week, where the encouragement was to wake up and make your bed every morning. It's part of a regular routine. When you have a routine, it helps your brain to manage things so they know what's happening when. There's a degree of certainty. At the moment, one of the big challenges a lot of people are having that'll be weighing them down is that there's no light at the end of the tunnel. We kind of all know, we've been told 4 weeks, and we're halfway through, well, we're almost halfway through. But there's this talk about maybe there's another week, maybe there's another couple of weeks. And so there's no certainty to the lockdown. And if it does end up 4 weeks, well, what then? So routines help you to create certainty in your days, which is really useful and helpful. In line with routines, one of the really important things is to look at your habits, getting up at the same time, as I've mentioned, and keeping regular work hours. Being clear that work should be work time and home should be home time. Watch work creep. Sometimes if you're stuck at home, you can find yourself on your laptop, on your computer, just working during time that you should be at home. So please do aim to be very focused. When you're at home, be home. Be present at home. When you're at work, give work 100% of your focus. It actually increases your performance if you're totally focused on what you're doing. Okay? And by setting specific work hours, your brain actually goes into, oh, it's work mode. We're at work time. And so your brain will think differently. A big part of that I found to be really useful working from home is to have a calendar. We use Google Calendar. Outlook's also very good. But it schedules your tasks. Don't just schedule, at the moment, you're not going anywhere. Okay? But you can schedule your tasks. And I literally put in there calling time, clearing email time, connecting with people, whatever the case may be. Putting it into your calendar can make a really big difference. A really important part of having a healthy mindset is to know yourself. Okay, some people are introverts, and this time hasn't been too much of a roller coaster for them. If you're an extrovert, you're probably craving people at the moment. If you're one of those touchy people, I like to give people hugs and handshakes and all the rest of it. Then what ends up happening, of course, is that if you don't have that people contact, how are you substituting? What are you doing? Do you know yourself well And are you making sure that you're being positive and doing the things that will help you to stay positive for the coming weeks? Another key thing to look at is the environment that you're in. Look at your setup at home. Do you actually have a space put aside? It's really helpful if you can have a little desk somewhere that helps your brain change gear. It helps your brain go into, right, I'm in work mode. Okay, so please do consider that, have a look at that. Be sure your workspace is quiet as much as possible. Ideally, if you've got a room, that would be amazing, and it stops you from getting distracted. Please try not to have a TV on or the radio on or something on while you're working. It can be very distracting, particularly if you've got this flashing picture happening all of the time around you. A big thing to watch in terms of keeping your productivity up and your energy levels up is your workspace ergonomically sound? You'll notice I'm standing, and I found that because I'm not a touch typist, I used to crouch over my desk, and I'll end up hurting my back. Whereas when I stand, it makes it a lot easier for me. So I found a standing desk to make a big difference. Particularly if you're doing a lot of online meetings like what we're doing here at the moment. If you're doing it, so at the moment it's a webinar, I can't see you, but you can see me, okay? If it's an online meeting, and many of you would have done this, people can see your background. 2 tips on that. Zoom has an ability to give you a false background. So if you click on your little 3 buttons, you can choose your background that you can have. And if you're not able to do that, or you chose not to do that, please be aware that things like bedrooms are probably not the best place for doing a Zoom meeting. And if you do have to be in your bedroom, please tidy up behind you. It's a very private place, and so just to be aware of that. Another key thing to be aware of is where you position yourself. Is it in the through flow of traffic? Now, that has a couple of key things. One, it's distracting for you because people are constantly moving past you. But also, you know, if you're having a Zoom meeting with somebody, do you risk a family member walking in? Okay. This one over here, this person was being interviewed by the BBC, and you know, the interview is going very well, like they normally do, and then suddenly this little kid burst in a bright yellow top, and many of you will have seen that. It spread around the world. It was one of the very first things where somebody hadn't been clear with his family and had allowed himself to be filmed where there was a thoroughfare. Recently, there have been a number of things. If those of you have looked at this on the internet, will have seen you know, people walking through, you know, just in their shorts or stuff like that, you know, somebody's spouse or something. So do be aware of that. And a big thing with this is tell your family I'm going online. Get their cooperation. Have a traffic light signal method, you know, red, orange, green. If it's green, come and go as you like. If it's orange, just knock before you come in. If it's red, do not come in. Okay. And another key tip for your environment, make sure that there's good lighting, so that if you would have noticed on Zoom meetings, sometimes someone leans in and the whole thing goes dark, and then they lean out and it changes the lighting. So do watch. Good light helps it to be easier to see. To wrap up for today, we'll cover off a couple more ideas around working from home tomorrow, but do look at your health in terms of your physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. A couple of key things, some ideas. Do some form of exercise, 20 to 30 minutes a day. You know, somebody said to me, you could do mowing, you could do lawns, you could walk around, you know, dance around the kitchen if you want to, okay? There's some really good apps. If you look at the Forbes top 10 apps, I found it to be a really good list. A number of people I know use these over here. So do look, if you want that, use something like that. Exercise naturally lifts your endorphins. I like to do push-ups and skipping. I've mentioned this a couple of times to people. I find that it just gets my energy levels up really, really quickly. And it helps you to stay focused. Getting your heart rate going and gives your brain the blood and oxygen that it needs to keep you focused. In terms of keeping healthy, chat with people. Those of you who are more people and you like people to be around, something like Google Hangouts can be really useful. You just turn on your Hangouts and literally just work together. You don't even have to talk. So Matt just absolutely yes. We're going to start uploading today all of the PowerPoints and the video clips. So yep, definitely we'll be getting that through to you. We've worked out how to do it now, and so it's going up today. So do chat with people. Please use things like Google Hangouts. When I travel a lot, sometimes Kerry and I will just turn on the Zoom meeting in in the evening, and we'll both be working on something, but you can see each other. It does help. Okay. Have a hobby. So in your downtime, learn something new. The guitar perhaps, or a new sport, or do an online course, but expand your mind. Go into the growth zone, because it helps you to feel better about yourself. Really important, one of the things that I learned to be very aware of is that it's very easy to do comfort eating or just snacking because the kitchen's right there. My top tip for you, when you go shopping, don't go shopping hungry, okay? Because then you tend to buy junk food, and you can only eat in your kitchen what you've bought. So buy healthy, really important thing to do. Another great thing is to leave yourself motivational sticky notes by your bed, so they're the first thing you see and read in the morning. And a number of people have talked about this. It's a big part of what we're doing. And as we start to look at putting input, positive things into us, then positive things will come out of us. If you're going to read a lot of news with all its negativity, that's what's going to be filled in your mind, and that's what's going to come out of your mouth. Whereas if you fill your mind up with what are people doing? How are people being proactive? What are the positive things we can do? What can I control? What should I focus on? Then that's what's going to come out of you when you need it to, under pressure. And a big thing as well is please take breaks. Connect with people at home. Taking short breaks might seem counterintuitive, but actually it lifts your energy levels, particularly when you're in a strange environment, being home. Just stopping, connecting with people, feeling human again can make a really big difference. A really important thing, just to wrap up today with, if you don't have a work-life balance, then you won't last long working from home. Work is a thing where you leave to go to work. I often say to people, we have, our office happens to be we've converted our garage into a very nice office. And so we leave to go to work, and we actually say goodbye like you would if you were going to go to work. It's a small thing, but it's all these little things help you to be emotionally and mentally, physically strong when you're having to work from home. I do trust that that's been useful. If you've got any questions, thoughts, ideas, please do share them. And as always, please feel free to email us and jump onto our website for the additional resources that we've got. Do share the link to these, and I look forward to catching up with you tomorrow. So thanks ever so much, everybody, and we'll catch up with you again tomorrow.